Today I am doing a review of The Edge of Never by J.A. Redmierski. The story revolves around 20-year-old Cameron Bennett, and she finds her life sort of in a place that she doesn't want it to be. She feels stuck in a routine and in a path that she doesn't necessarily want to take. So in a spur-of-the-moment decision, she hops on a bus and takes off to her destination of nowhere. She just wanted to get away, and she needed to get away and do something different. So with no destination in mind, she gets on this bus, and is there that she meets Andrew Parrish. Andrew Parrish is a 25-year-old guy who's on this bus to go visit his father. Andrew is the type of guy who lives in the present and doesn't think too much about tomorrow or the next day, but lives in the moment. And that's very much something that Cameron wants and desires, and one of the reasons that she left. And so she finds herself very drawn to Andrew. Following a series of events, Cameron and Andrew end up sticking together and traveling with each other. Of course, they both end up developing feelings for each other, but are both very reluctant to act on them. Cameron has a past of a lot of infidelity and death, so she's very hesitant, and Andrew holds a secret that might just keep them apart. I ended up giving this book 2.75 stars. Honestly, it was really hard for me to rate this book because I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. It's very confusing because on one hand I enjoyed it, and on another hand it really annoyed me. I haven't read much new adult. I mean, I've read some, but not that much, so maybe I'm just not as used to it. But it was just got to a point where all the sex scenes, it was just so much of it. Like, I felt like there was way too much. Like, for me personally, I just got to a point where I was like, okay, like, I get it. Move on. I wanted more story, because once it hit a certain point, I feel like there was just so much of those scenes, and it was just too much for me. I just got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm done with this. Can we move on? And of course, that's me. Some people I know enjoy those a lot more, and so whatever kind of person you are, if you really enjoy that, you'll probably enjoy that. But if you're a person who maybe doesn't mind it, but like once it hits a certain point it's too much, or if you're a person who doesn't like it at all, then I don't know if this book would really be a good idea. For like a really basic, just having a romance story because I craved a romance story, it was good. But there were some things that like really bothered me. One of them was, there's this point in the story where Cameron has to like tell Andrew that he owns her, that she wanted him to own her. Like I get it, but personally, anytime it deals with like someone owning another person, it bothers me. And maybe I'm just being oversensitive and it's not that big of a deal, but it didn't really sit right with me, if that makes sense. This book is a dual point of view. It has both Cameron and Andrew's point of views, which I always like that. It's always kind of fun to see into the other minds a little bit. Cameron, I liked her. There is like a few things that bothered me. First of all, she loved to like call other girls sluts, which is pretty popular in books anyways and in life. But I'm not a huge fan of it. Just because a girl wants to act or dress a certain way doesn't mean that we should look down on them or define them or anything or judge or any of that stuff. There's too much girl hate in this world, and we don't need other girls to be hating girls. I really liked Andrew too. Like, he's that kind of like really charming, attractive guy, and he can be like really funny sometimes, and Cameron can too. And some of their scenes together were just really cute and funny. But sometimes with Andrew, I just wanted to smack his head and be like, bro, get your shit together. Figure out your life. Just stop. Just stop. And it's just like, with Andrew, there was that like, you know, it hints in the like summary thing, synopsis, where like he has this dark secret and it's gonna keep them apart thing. And okay, that's fine. But the problem is with me with this book is it's just, and I know new adult likes to have like a lot of problems and darkness and dark pasts and issues involved, and that's fine, but I feel like it just hits a point where it's just too much. With this book, I felt like she was just trying to like cram in all these problems and issues, and it just hit a point where it's like, okay, like calm down. We don't need that much going on. And I felt like Andrew's secret was one of them. I first of all saw it coming like a mile away. I figured what it was. And I have some problems with that too. I didn't care enough. I was just like, okay. Like it was too much going on. I just wanted to roll my eyes and be like, okay, this is like, you've hit this point where I just don't care anymore. And I just want to roll my eyes because it's way too much. The character of Cameron's best friend, Natalie, I had a few problems with her. First of all, like the way she acted, you're like, okay, girl, like that's not how a best friend acts. And like, I know you were going through some stuff, but I don't really forgive you the way Cameron forgives you. And maybe I'm just less of a forgiving person, but actually, no, I guess I can kind of understand it. Because if I were in Cameron's position, I'd probably forgive her too. But because I'm not, I don't forgive her. Because if someone hurts me, I forgive them a lot more easily than if someone hurts someone else. The other thing about Natalie that bothered me is I felt like the author was using Natalie to show Cameron's depth. And I felt like because of that, Natalie was kind of made really shallow. I don't know, I just felt like the author really wanted to show, oh, Cameron's different. She's not normal. She has a lot more depth to her. She's not a run-of-the-mill girl who just thinks about girl things and sex and clothes and blah, blah, blah. Like, she thinks about important things. She thinks about what's happening on the other side of the world. She thinks about if a tree is falling in the middle of the woods. She thinks about the sand blowing in the desert. She thinks about everything. Well, it's fine that Cameron's deep and she thinks about that stuff. That's fine, but the part that was annoying was almost like she was setting it up like, oh, Cameron's so deep. She's so much better than Natalie. She doesn't waste her time on things that Natalie likes. Instead, she thinks about the important things. And I didn't like the whole like setting up of like Cameron's so much more superior than any other girl in this world. Like, okay, good for her. I don't know. I feel like it's a lot more easy for me to talk about the things I disliked about the book because those are things that like stand out like, oh, that really bothered me. But in another way, I enjoyed the basic premise idea of the book. There's some things I really like. Like I've always said I would love to just get in a car and go and not have any destination involved, but just go and drive and see where it takes me and see where I end up and see where I keep going to, and just so many amazing things. I would love to do that. That's something I would love to do and I think that's amazing. That whole idea of it is one of the things I was like, oh, I need to read this. She pushed herself to try new things, to get up and sing in front of that audience when she would never do it before. She pushed herself to leave her comfort zone and to try new things. And that's like some of the things I've really been trying to do a lot more. I've been pushing myself out of my comfort zone to go do things. And it's actually really fun. And it's super nerve-wracking and my anxiety goes all over the place. But it ends up being really rewarding to me. And so like in those ways I could really relate to this book and I really appreciated the book. And then there was also the relationship between Cameron and Andrew. Sometimes I liked it and sometimes I didn't. But the thing I did like was just their conversation and their banter. And I thought that was really fun because I'm such a huge fan of banter. I'll read you one of the parts that I liked and I can remember that I liked, because I think this review needs some good in it too. And this is in Andrew's point of view. And this is what he says. He says, I've got the blanket in one hand as I run behind her, letting her stay a few steps ahead of me, so if she happens to fall, I'll be there to laugh at her first and then help her up afterwards. And I think that sums up their relationship pretty well. And it's pretty fun, except for the other stuff. But, you know, there's good and bad. I know a lot of people who absolutely loved this book. So if you are a fan of new adult, I think that may be something that kind of hurt a little, is I haven't read that much of it. But if you really are a fan of new adult and you don't mind all the sexy times and you don't mind a lot of problems, then I think that you could really, really enjoy this, because I know a lot of people do. But this is my opinion, so if you share some of my feelings, maybe it's not the best for you, but maybe if you hear my review and you think it sounds awesome, then go and read it. That's my review. I hope it makes sense when I put it all together, because like this whole book's got my head all over the place. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!